and just decide $100.
All right, check, check, check. All right, check, check, check. All right, perfect. You guys always know I got to do a mic check at the beginning. Welcome to the Take It Home podcast. Early show because we are very busy today, so I'm not going to drop a lot of videos or anything like that I'm used to doing. But welcome everybody that is joining, and we'll look at this later. I am Chris Classic, and like I said, welcome to the Take It Home podcast. We have a very special guest today, a guy who I have been feuding with off and on since 2021. The future is bright for this young man. I'm very proud of everything that he has done in the business. One of my favorite guys to face, and he hasn't even been in the business in a long time. And I'm not much of anybody, but to me, that just says a lot about how much he cares for his craft. So, before I go into it, I also want to promote things that I have going on. I'm going to do this briefly because, like I said, we are pressed for time, no iron. Um, February 3rd, we are back Battle Bowl. Now there's wrestling. I am part of the Fatal Four Way tournament to be the contender for the Now That's Wrestling Championship, a championship that both of us, me and the guests, have had before. And I'm also the One Sweet Deal champion. So I know a lot of people are like, why am I going in a tournament if I already have something to solidify me a title shot? It's because I am alpha for a reason, ladies and gentlemen, and I also want to be the best. Also, March 2nd, we're back at the Russell Dome at Neenah, Wisconsin. At Now That's Forever. It's going to be great. Now That's Wrestling has been a great home for me in the Wisconsin area. They are my family, so love those guys. Also, make a debut in Detroit next month with Motown Madness. It's February 24th on a Saturday. United Wrestling Front and Drip Trip Media. I am there to collect points for the championship over there. So we all trying to get belts. We all trying to get belts this year. So I got the graphic done. So shout out to Tony Thunder for everything that he continues to do, and thank you for giving me an opportunity. Also, April 20th, we have still the show, C3 Ultimate Wrestling. I dropped the flyer yesterday. It's going to be a great show. I'm going against Alex J. Horn, a guy that beat me before convincingly. And we have a lot of title matches. We have matches we've never seen before. It is going to be dope. So, let me set everything up to put the guest on. I'm going to add it. Without further ado, can you hear me, sir?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Hold on. I don't think I can hear you. Let me see. Okay. I think I can hear you now.
Can you?
Yes.
All right.
I can hear you now. So, for the people who don't know, who are you, sir?
My name is the Spectre Jayden Mercer.
Oh, that's it. It's
That's
just
all.
the Spectre.
That's all it is. Uh, it's different because this is my very first interview, and so
Oh man.
when people actually watch me perform, they notice that my eyes are black, but that's because the mask is with me. But now that it's just Jayden, I'm just a normal guy.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the main things that like I've seen like back and forth with facing you is that the mask is its own entity, and like you said, Jaden is his own person. So
Absolutely, and
that's always been interesting to me. So if you could, do you want to explain more on the mask or on Jaden? It is up to you.
well, I guess where do we even start? So the Jayden Mercer story is a very interesting one, and there's a lot that goes into it. Jayden is a guy who pretty much grew up just as a nobody. Like he was a middle child in his family, and he always just felt forgotten about and overlooked by people, no matter what, if he was in school, at home, athletics, doesn't matter. For whatever reason, even though he felt apart, at the same time, he wasn't always there. and he became unconfident with himself, and it's a lot of emotion that is based off of this character. And then because he felt so covered up, that's where the mask came into play. The mask is the symbol of being covered up and feeling like you aren't being seen by people. And so the kicker with this is that when the mask gets involved, that's where the darkness starts to show. Like there's something with the mask that brings out a different side of this regular person.
I've seen it.
I was going to say, you've seen me in the ring. Like, you know what goes on.
I've seen it. And to be a vessel to that very powerful mask and very mysterious, it's pretty dope and it's interesting. And even as Jayden Mercer, it's a connection that I'm sure many of us have dealt with at one part of life.
Exactly. And that was really kind of the point that I wanted to make with when creating this identity, because that was always like my biggest struggle, especially coming from where I trained or whatever. It was very much like, okay, I remember receiving like, okay, your homework is to come up with a bunch of different characters of, okay, who are you essentially? And for whatever reason, I'm like, I don't know what it is. And then I remember just sitting down one night and all of a sudden my brain was just clicking like, okay, who am I? And like, you really got to take like a deep analysis into who you are and just the things that make you who you are. And hopefully that will eventually resonate with other people when you decide to portray it.
Yeah, I was always taught that your character is somewhat of an extension of yourself.
Yes.
So even with that, it's so symbolic to a lot of people because regardless of good guy, bad guy, you have a big following. You have a lot of fans that wear your merch, that wear a lot of the things because, like I said, a lot of us at one point in life have felt that. What is our identity? Who are we? We want to hide somewhere. Jayden hides behind a mask that reveals a lot of things through the darkness. And sometimes we have to determine, what do we want to do? Do we want to do the good thing or do you want to do the bad thing? What is the best thing to do? So like I said, like that is a very detailed description and it's also relatable.
Yes.
With wrestling, it's not a lot of characters that some people can say are very relatable. Like it's some that we love and we like and we cherish. But when you have a backstory like that, that is something that a lot of people can be like, you know what? That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and especially with the sport of wrestling and the whole theatrics of it, I've noticed from, because this was like my brainchild, this is my baby, and I've tried to do my best to take care of it. But it's like when you're first debuting, the hardest thing is to try to resonate. And when with a character like that, they don't see all the things that you see in your brain, like the angel and the devil on your shoulder. Like they don't see those things. So it's like trying to find the way to portray that. And so I remember like my first, I would say 6 months, I was like really struggling. Like, okay, like I feel like I have a good grasp on what I'm doing, but I'm like, something's not clicking. But then the more they started to see me and the more I started to go places, then they're like, okay, there's something here, but now let's just watch it portray. So it's like you got to kind of stick through the progression and the evolution of it. And then that's when things will start to make sense.
Yeah, and I say you do like I said, a great job with it. Sometimes it takes people years. I've said before, I didn't just start off as a classic alpha. I was Chris Classic, and I still use that for videos and things like that. And I eventually transformed into a classic alpha. And then it's funny because it's just like you would think that two guys on the different sides of the spectrum and Spectre, bars, they have a lot in common. So I did want to say this before we get into more of a personal thing about where you guys started. There are a lot of characters that, let's say, embrace the darkness or, have a dark side or an evil side. And it's a lot in wrestling. Like The Undertaker is to me, the greatest wrestler of all time. So how now I've seen it, but I want you to explain it a little bit more. What makes your character different and more special than these other wrestlers that tap into the darkness as well?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess the only thing that really differentiates me from all these different characters is that it's more, and I've noticed a lot now with the progression of the business was, back in the 80s and 90s when there was Undertaker, everybody was like, oh my God, like this guy might actually be like spooky. And same with Kane when he showed up. But then now, as we progress throughout the years, like people are like, okay, you can tell like it's still, it's just, certain things about, like, let's say, for example, the Fiend when he was a thing. Like everybody knows it's Bray Wyatt underneath there, but it's how you portray said persona. Mine, it's very reality based compared to them. And there are certain aspects of my character and what I portray with my mask that brings out the illusion of certain things and to show the angel and the devil and the darkness kind of consuming. So it's almost like you kind of really got to use your imagination. And once you're able to kind of like throw yourself into a different mindset when you walk into a wrestling show, then you'll start to see why it makes sense.
Yeah. I couldn't have said it better myself. I've seen matches and I've seen people act way different when they put on the mask that you carry to the ring.
Yeah.
I've even seen I've seen some people do some dark things. I've seen people got controlled, mind controlled, and then I've even seen somebody do the Thriller dance. So
and the crazy thing about that was that whole thing was probably one of the toughest things I've had to do in wrestling because it was just so goofy and everybody knows it, but you got to you're like, oh my God, like I was so close and like trying to not, laugh at, I'm like, oh my God, this is the craziest thing in the world. But yeah, I mean, that's the whole beauty of wrestling is when, especially at now is a
yes,
great
now,
place where, I mean, you and I have done battles, but like at the same time, it's not that we just wrestled a bunch. It was the story that we told from 2021 till what was it, late 2023? I would say.
like early, early, it now has been a blessing to me to even meet great guys like you and Preston and your boy Roy and Jimothy. And if I forget somebody's name, forgive me. Even meeting the guys that have been in the Wisconsin scene for a while: Nathan Smash, Ecstasy, Porn Stash, Shoeless. Like the list goes on.
Oh yeah.
TWT. And to me, it's like it's very dope because now that's wrestling is a company that has it all. You have a lot of companies out there that say we do everything, and then when they do it, it's either sloppy and it makes no sense.
Mm-hmm.
Now that wrestling says that we don't make sense here.
It's very straight to the point, and I think
Yes,
when fans go to like a Now show, that's exactly what they should expect. They shouldn't expect your traditional wrestling show. Like, yes, you'll have your goofiness, your silliness, your comedy, but like at Now, everything is just taken straight to a different atmosphere where it's just like, oh my gosh, what am I watching?
yes, they're very transparent with what is provided. You have a lot of people that promote something that they aren't. And Now That's Wrestling has always been honest with what you're going to get. You're going to get your serious. You're going to have your comedy. You're going to have a lot of things. I forgot the other. What was it? It wasn't called the Elimination Chamber. It was called something else.
Imagination Chamber.
Imagination Chamber. I and people would think, man, this is going to be crazy. And yes, it was crazy in a great way. You get what I'm saying? Like a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
are scared to try to emulate something or make something their own. And that's something that not only that now that's wrestling does, but you do it yourself with the Spectre and the personal thing and the thing that is relatable to see like so many people, kids and adults have your merch, your hoodies. Like even when you're not there, there's people that's having like your merchandise, your hoodies and things like that. And I mean, I have one of your shirts, so that's that's always a big thing. And I've said that for the longest. It's just like, okay, even if things are similar, if you can make it your own, that's what makes it special. That's what makes people want to look at that. And I think that you've done a great job with that.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's been crazy with a bunch of people telling like my merch is blown up. I'll get messages from people like, "Oh, I was in the gym and I saw like somebody wearing a Spectre shirt," and I'm like, "Really?" Like that's just so bizarre to me. But at the same time, like I've taken a lot of pride in the things that I create. I've always had a creative brain, and for a while too, after when I was in college, I went and I got my bachelor's degree in graphic design. So I took a lot of pride in making like this hat and all my shirts, my hoodies, every single design and every single concept I've made, I've spent hours on. It's very rewarding at the end of the day.
But that's good. But even saying that you got a bachelor's in graphic design, I want to commend you for that as well, because sometimes even in college, sometimes we have a hard time saying like, how are we going to apply this to our everyday life? How is this going to provide? And for you to incorporate that and to have a lot of things in great detail with your merchandise, with your clothing, with your gear, that's big. And it took me a while to like do something with I got an associate's, but it took me a while to even get something done with that, to be able to even provide more for my family and more for like wrestling and things that I want to do. So like I said, it's all positive and it's all love over here when it comes to those kind of things.
Oh, absolutely.
I wanted to go to a couple comments.
Okay.
All right, Arshawn, shout out to him from Critically Drinking. He says, fight, fight, fight. He's a big fan of the channel. He comments on a lot of the content. He's watched all our matches, because the only match I do not have of us on the Taking On podcast is the triple threat that happened.
And was that the very first one?
Yes, for the Mid Valley. I didn't know that it was for the Mid Valley.
Oh, that one. And then who's the other guy in it?
Toretto.
Okay, yep, I remember that.
Yeah. That was a wonderful match, and I'm upset that I do not have no footage of it. But the other fights that we had, the other three, they are on the Taking On podcast. You know, I send it to you every time I get done editing it. So Hunter James says Mercer is the man.
Shout out to Hunter.
Yeah. So Arshawn also says that's interesting. Crafting a persona sounds difficult, but also something that helps you discover yourself. Yes. That's true.
1,000%. Yeah, the whole character in of itself took me, oh gosh, I want to say it took me about 10 months to fully concept the character. Like it took a long time. And that was just coming up with like the story behind it. But then you actually have to apply it. Okay, what mannerisms make sense? And then so that's a whole nother ball game. So yeah, it's just been progression after progression. But now the really cool thing with my character and how like detailed it is you can do so many different things with it. And that's another cool thing that I've learned as I've gone along, was like, yeah, what you see at Now That's Wrestling with the Spectre whenever he's there is going to be a completely different Spectre compared to what you see at, let's say, if you were in the Milwaukee area last night at ICW when I won the World Heavyweight Championship for the second time. That's a whole different character in of itself. Then if you go to like Oshkosh area at ACW Wisconsin, that's a whole nother character, because, well, I mean, in December, Salem Crane actually broke my mask. And so now at ACW specifically, we are starting to see the evolution of what the Spectre truly is and who is in control. Is it the mask, or is there something else going on? So that whole storyline has been fun to work with too.
Yeah, I was going to save it for later, but yeah, I did want to say, like, you know, to see your growth and to see your progress in like other companies, it's phenomenal. And it's great to see that, because a lot of people who just started or haven't been in there for a long time, it takes them a long time to try to you know, knock the door down, because sometimes you don't get that key that so many people ask for. So like to see you win titles again, second 2 times ICW, to see things like this is pretty dope. to see the group that you're in is pretty dope. You know, like to
Yep,
see
the
things.
GBA at Brew City
Yeah,
Wrestling.
yeah, to see these kind of things, like it's very dope to be like, hey man, this guy is gonna go somewhere, and then to see him literally going places and making a name for himself, and then even most improved. Like these things are very good to see. It's very happy to see, you know. So like I said, like to see that a lot of other people are also talking greatness or like speaking greatness into you and what you do with your character. That's a very dope thing to see, man.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely one of those things where it's like, because obviously you've been in the business way longer than I have, and like sometimes where it's like you're just constantly, just doing your best. You go out and perform, you give it all you got, and it's like sometimes it's very hard to like, smell the flowers, and like you just
Yes.
feel like like something's like, what am I doing wrong? And you just start overthinking. But then when you get those things from fans, and when they buy your merchandise, you're like, you know what, I am doing something right. Like, there is reasons to be grateful.
Yeah. It yeah. Um Now that's wrestling, it kind of rejuvenated some of the things for me as a classic alpha because um I was wrestling in Illinois and Indiana, and I still do to this time. And to me, I'm just in it because I love it so much. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like the best way I could show that I love it is to contribute to it. And then even having like C3 Ultimate Wrestling, which we want to bring you in the future, of course, and to like wrestle for other companies is just a good thing. But when I went to now and like people wanted to take a lot of pictures or or subscribe to me on YouTube, and then when I did make merch, so many people wanted the shirts and things like that. It brought something back into me. It's just like, you know what, like, just continue to do your best. Sometimes it's not a race. Sometimes it's just about consistency at the end of the day. You do have a lot of guys that be like, you know what, this is it for me, I'm not going anywhere or anything like that. And to me, I was just doing it just to show how much I care for it. And that's why I'm very vocal on certain things. I'm not saying I know everything or I'm perfect or whatever like that. You get what I'm saying? But at the same
Hmm.
time, sometimes when you get that support from fans, from other wrestlers, that goes a long way. So
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things where it's like, even if you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, if you just keep digging, eventually you're gonna reach the final point. And so that's why it's like you always just got to keep going.
yeah. So where and when did you start wrestling?
So I started training at the ACW Wisconsin Academy in November of 2019, and that school is ran by Hornswoggle, Nick Colucci, and we've had a plethora of different student trainers. So there'd be guys like Miles Mason that would, during my time, was there to help train us. Guys like Salem Crane, he was a huge part of, you know, working with me on my craft, my character work, all that fun stuff. So yeah, we've had a slew of them.
Yeah. Seeing some of you guys work in now there's wrestling, and I like to say that I've never wrestled for ACW, but if that's if you guys are the product of them training you guys, then that is an awesome place to be at because you guys do a great job with character development and the opportunities that you guys get. So
Yeah,
I will.
absolutely. Don't mean to cut you off, but yeah,
No,
like
you good. Yeah.
uh, we have, at least in my class, like my class, we just call ourselves the Furious Five, essentially. But it's our graduating class. It was me, Preston Palmer, your boy Roy. Even though he was technically he was the class before us, but he was just the last guy, so he kind of got bumped down with us.
Okay.
Jimothy, and then do you remember Luke Pierce? He still shows up here and there, but he used to be a wrestler. Now he's more of a commentator, ring announcer kind of guy.
Yeah, I know you talk about. Yes.
Loverboy,
Yeah.
yep.
Love
But
boy.
yeah,
Yep. Yep.
that
Yep. I
that
definitely.
that was our those five were that was our class.
Yes. You guys do a great job. Like even the other companies that I see in Wisconsin that you guys wrestle for, I've seen it. Like I've seen you in Avalon twice.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that
That
was. Wrestling Avalon was, I mean, you hear it from everybody. He's arguably, if not the GOAT of Wisconsin wrestling. I mean,
Yes,
he's
a lot of
done it
people. Yeah,
forever. Super genuine, nice guy. He'll want to work with you for the most part. I know everybody has their own different stories. I love him. I think he's great. But yeah, getting to wrestle him taught me a lot about myself, and just how seeing how good he actually is makes you want to, try to get to that level. Like, he
yes.
is the standard, in my opinion.
Yes, and that's cool when you can face guys that are respected or been doing this for a while. Sometimes we have our own measuring stick, but then when you see these guys and you say they set a standard, it's a different measuring stick. Can you compete? Can you do
Mhm.
you have the mind like them? Can you keep up with that? How would this match look? And that's very important as like a professional wrestler. Now I don't just say I wrestle. I say I'm a professional wrestler because there I think there's more weight to it because there is a standard to it. It's definitely a standard. So like I remember when I saw you, I said, man, that you and Avalon, you guys had a great match. And then I see like you and Preston, you guys trade victories with each other at the different companies that you guys work for. And all five of you guys are pretty awesome to me. You know what I'm saying? You know, I
Oh
can
yeah.
talk to Roy. I talk to Roy, and you can just tell that he has like so much passion for this business, and he wants things to make sense. With Preston having the larger than life attitude and demeanor and the character he had, even when it was with Jimothy, and then Jimothy on his own, having his own character in other companies that were great. And with Luke, just just contributing to even commentating, and then when was wrestling for a little bit, pretty good. So it's like I said, if the future of wrestling is in all of you guys' hands, wrestling will be great and it will stay great because you guys are awesome.
Yeah, that is very, very humbling. Thank you for that. Yeah, and like, especially now, I still go to the ACW Academy, and I'm it's almost like I'm in that student coach role now too. So like, seeing guys that go down there to train, and having them try to pick your brains, and you try and working with them, it helps you stay in ring shape, but at the same time you're trying to learn things as you go, but you're doing it from a different perspective. So like, being able to train guys like Kaiser, and obviously Big Rig from the Baker Boys,
Yeah,
Brooke Tanner, like, there's so many people that come from that school. But now when they go to a place like Now That's Wrestling, we always call it like ACW Wisconsin Academy's NXT. Like, this is
yeah,
where you want to go to get your reps in, to figure out who you are, what works, what doesn't work. And so it's one of those things where it's when you put the work in, you're gonna reap the benefits.
yeah. And even you saying you help him train guys like Kaiser, who I talked to at the last show, was like, man, we gotta have a match soon.
Yeah,
And I had a
Kaiser's the man. And
yeah,
the
and
crazy thing about Kaiser too is, so I'm from, and I'll say I'm from a little small town, uh, a little west of Sheboygan. It's called Kiel. I don't know if you've ever heard of it or not, but he's from New Holsting, which is maybe 5-7 minutes, I would say, northwest of Kiel. And
yeah,
I didn't realize that he went there. And like, Kiel and New Holsting were always rivals when it came to like school. So once I found out that he went there, because I'm like, Kaiser, that sounds really familiar. And then I was like, oh my God, you went to there and I went here. And it's like, it's so crazy that we both somehow found wrestling. So it was like one of those cool little things that we can bond on now.
yeah. He's very good. Like I've been looking at a lot of his matches, and the matches he had with Smash and Out of Control too, and then even what we had at the Bigger Bang, who he went against. I was like, man, this guy's intense. I can't wait to lock in the ring with him. And then Big Rig, I faced him in a last man standing match, and that guy, one is a big guy, but he's also great.
Yeah,
He's a great
yeah,
guy. Cognac,
he is a
Cognac,
big boy, but yeah,
yeah, they're
he's
both
great.
great. Yeah,
I would love one of these days to wrestle both Big Rig and Kaiser one on one. I feel like we could do some really special stuff.
yeah, those, yeah, they're great. Brooke, I've seen Brooke. Oh my god, like she's a sweetheart. A lot of people get behind her. I remember her and Preston at one of the Now That's Wrestling events, and yeah, man, like you're naming people that I've met or I've seen in action, and it's just like I said, it's just cool because I've always talked about like a certain decorum for professional wrestling to have, and I see it here in Indiana and Illinois, but to also see it in Wisconsin. It's pretty dope, man. It's pretty dope to like see these kind of things in professional wrestling, and then it's one of the reasons why, like, we talked about this before about us setting up an interview, and I'm like, oh man, we got to do this we got to do this, man. I'll be like, this would be dope if you were my first interview of the year to talk about the business, because we can talk for hours about certain things and about the aspects, and then even with our matches, we're like, man, what can we do different from the last one? And I think that all three of them, if you looked at all three, the fans, the viewers that are looking now, you'd be like, oh man, like these are three different matches. So
Yeah,
that
that was just putting those matches together and being able to be like, okay, so let's say, okay, we're wrestling and like you give me this move. Okay, why are you giving this move? How are we telling the story of both of us and what we're portraying? How does that all make sense? So like a lot putting matches together with you and for the grander scheme of things was super, super fun.
yeah, it's risky too because of our characters. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
yeah, it was
yeah,
definitely
you get what I'm
really
saying? Because
bizarre.
yeah, it's how can we do something different to make the crowd still be involved? And that's the
Mhm.
biggest thing with matches sometimes. Like I've seen people have great matches with no crowd involvement. But also what we do is we try to get the crowd into the match to where, hey, don't do this, don't do that. Like the second one, Out of Control, when we went against each other title for title, when I teased putting the mask on after I took it off of TJ, who was controlled by the mask. Man, that was a good match. All of them great,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, I
to
was gonna say
defend
like
it,
all of them are fantastic, and like
right?
the fun part was like after the first Out of Control, and then you won that title for title one. Then going into because we knew we were gonna do another one, and
Yeah,
like the build towards that where it was like you were just getting strictly just Jayden because he felt like the mask screwed him over. So it
yeah,
was just like okay, now there's the internal conflict going on between him and like he's telling his story and like the fans were starting to almost feel bad for him. And so
yeah,
then all of a sudden, once that flip switched back and I took out Gust, that just rebuilt everything right there. And now the fans are like, oh, we like both of these. Like now it's like, oh my gosh, now we really want to see this next one.
yeah. It's dope. And like I said, like even going back to the second match when I took the mask, and then so many people break the mask, and then my wife was recording the match, and then there was a young man. He was screaming like, "No, don't put it on!" And I laughed every time because that is what we try to do sometimes. We want people to get sucked into the action that we have to they don't know what's next. You know what I'm saying? And I think
Mm-hmm.
what we have done and what you do for with other companies, that's a great thing, because I always think that you're going to always have support when you go to a show because of the character that you have. And then hopefully more people will look at this and they'll understand the character of Jayden Mercer and things like that. Because like I said, what you said is relatable to me, and it's relatable to a lot of people trying to find an identity and what the mask itself can bring out of somebody. That's a great thing. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, I got a few more comments. I'm gonna read those real quick. Uh Arshawn said, "Whoa." I believe he was referring to when I said that when you make things your own. So a lot of people call themselves the GOAT, right? But
Mm-hmm.
the boxer Clarissa Shields, she's a woman, so she calls herself the GWOAT. So the greatest.
Oh, yep. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So that's kind of that's a good one. Even though I wouldn't say GWOAT, but anyway, uh, Clint says, "Good stuff, Mercer. My daughter loves you. See you at the next Now appearance."
Oh, thanks, Clint. That's awesome.
Yeah. And he also says, "Hi, classic. See you there as well." All right, Brett, shout out, Brett. I'm gonna
Shout out
upload that
Duffy.
picture you sitting down, Brett. I'm
Hey,
gonna upload that video.
hey, Duffy, I got my eyes on you. You're next, buddy. I'll come on your show too.
Yeah, they do a great job at his show as well. Clint says Kaiser is rising.
Guys. Yep.
Yep.
He's on his way.
And Nathan says two of my favorite humans. Well, you're everybody's favorite human, sir.
Yeah, I was gonna say, come on,
So
Gus. You know
like
better.
like The opportunities that you've given so many people it's crazy. And like I don't even like driving a lot. So to drive 3.5, 4 hours for now, that's because I love y'all. So that's a big thing. All right. So I do want to ask a couple more questions. So
Okay.
what are some of your pet peeves in professional wrestling?
Ooh. I would say, that's a really good question, actually. Some of my pet peeves, when I would say when people, or let's say if I'm wrestling someone one-on-one, and it's almost like you give, so the idea of wrestling is, you take a move from somebody, you want to make them look as great as possible. It's when they don't reciprocate that energy when now it's your turn.
Yeah. Whew. I have been in locker rooms before that has happened in my matches and other matches as well, especially when it comes to who's winning.
Yep.
And it's like, oh, I feel like I deserve this. So let's say they do a German. I'm going to make that German look great. But then let's say I'd want to do a running power slam, and then you sandbag or you kick out at one. Or I've
Right.
seen it.
It's those little things like that where it's just like, come on, man. Like it is, and especially like if you already envision it a certain way in your brain, like, okay, yep, this is gonna look, or this is gonna work. And then all of a sudden, people and their egos kick in, and it's just like, oh, all right, because now it's like, oh, you kind of just, took me out of it for a little bit.
It's not fun anymore. The match becomes not fun anymore because you came in thinking, hey, if I win, I'm going to have the best match. But since you're not going to win, you're going to give somebody else a hard time. And to me, regardless of win or lose, of course, everybody wants to win. But still, we have something, we have a decorum, we have a standard that we have to uphold. And it's just like, my thing with wrestling is I'm going to keep doing this as long as I'm having fun and being safe, of course. But I have seen people just like so upset. They don't want to do nothing. And then they're like, it takes away me wanting to have fun because you're dragging everything else. It's just like, I want to have this match and I don't want to see you right now. Like, go home or something.
Yeah. It's one of those, especially in the sport of professional wrestling, where it's like, my mindset is always just leave your ego at the door. Just come in open-minded and just, everybody's on the same playing field. We're all working together. Like, so there's no reason to be like, oh, I'm better than this person, so I don't feel like I have to do this. Like, just everybody just leave your ego at the door.
Right. We need each other. That's the biggest thing is, and I hope people understand this, that we need each other. You cannot sit here and say that you're the greatest wrestler of all time without facing another wrestler. Like, you know what I'm saying? You cannot say you're basically the greatest at a lot of things, especially in sports, if you have not faced either the best or even faced anybody at all.
Absolutely,
so, yeah. I'm trying to understand just the aspect of like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to give this person a hard time because I'm not winning, which is very dangerous, by the way, because you could sandbag and hurt yourself, or you can hurt your opponent. And, we do hurt anyway, right?
Right. Yeah. I was going to say, it's not like it feels great or anything. It's like, if you really sit back and watch it, like it sucks, but it's one of those. Yeah. But I'll tell you what, though, one of my favorite things about wrestling is when you get to work with people that will push you, like, especially during a match where it's, like, let's say, I would say my best example that I've had thus far is every time I'm in the ring with Preston.
Yeah.
Him and I, like, we both work on and it's just because we both, came from the same class. So like, we know how each other work, but it's one of those, like, during the match, we will try to push each other as hard as we possibly can. Yeah. And it's one of those sad things. So it's because I don't get to wrestle him a whole lot, but I would say I like people that will make me, like, really push me to be like, okay, how far are you willing to go? How willing are you to keep going?
Yeah. Preston is definitely one of those ones because Preston was my first opponent at Now That's Wrestling.
That's right.
I faced him twice, and But the first time and even the second time, I had so much fun because as crazy as his character is, he takes his business very serious. Like
Yeah. Hmm.
it's a serious thing. I remember he started working out, he started looking better in the ring and stuff like that because this was something that he cared about. And I remember him and Jimothy tearing the house down in Appleton, and
That was
got in trouble
such a
for
good match. Such a
got
good
got in
match.
trouble got in trouble for spraying the ketchup. But and it just shows just how much he cared for. So it's just like I see when I do see you guys go against each other when it shows up on who I subscribe to on YouTube or whatever, or even on Facebook. I'm like, okay, I'm definitely going to look because these guys, these guys are great. So like I said, like that whole class and even the guys that are under you, you guys are like so dope. So
That's awesome. Thank you.
no problem. The glam god says alpha baby.
Good old glam god.
Clint says put a ticket, but he meant rocket. He says put a
Oh,
rocket under Preston. That's what he meant. Because I was like,
yep.
put a ticket. Like, is he
Yeah.
speeding? But going into it, okay, since we're talking on the positive, because I don't want to keep you long. Um, who are some guys that you would like to face? Either rematches or just new guys. Like who would you want to go in the ring with?
Um, let's see. As far as guys that have or girls that have came from ACW Wisconsin's academy after me. So like Big Rig is one of them I would love to go one-on-one with.
Oh yeah.
Like I mentioned Kaiser. I would love to have a another one-on-one with Preston. Jimothy would be awesome. Strictly just because him and I worked a couple times at ACW Wisconsin when we were both, just starting off. Like we had I'd say 2 or 3 matches back to back to back. But I'm like
Yeah.
at this point, I was like, I would love to see how far we've progressed. Some other names out there that I've want to wrestle one-on-one. I would love a rematch with Avalon. Right now I'm at ACW Wisconsin. I'm in a rivalry with Salem Crane. So working with him has been a blast. Nick Colucci is one of them. Before he calls it quits, I want to have a match with him. I would love to see me versus Swoggle and just that dynamic.
Oh yeah.
I think that would be that would just I'd never really thought about it until now. I'm like, that would be interesting to say the least. There's a couple others that Chucky Bates is one of them.
Okay, yeah.
CJ Cole, I've had a rivalry with at ICW, but I was like, just wrestling with him is always so fun, and we bring the best out of each other. So, going one-on-one with him again would just make my day. Yeah, that's just a slew of names, and I'm sure there's more that I'm forgetting, but yeah, those are just a couple of them.
Right, you'll always forget. Oh man, it was 10 more.
Yeah.
Xavier says, I miss Jairus. Thaddeus wears the Spectre mask all the time. So,
Hey, I'll be back before you know it, but it's just been busy. So it's one of those things. I'll be back. I just don't know when yet.
Yeah, Big Rig says same, make it happen.
Say less, buddy.
Yeah. All right. I think this would be like the last question before we close out.
Okay.
I see that you care about the business. You care about your craft and what you can contribute to it to make it a better place. If there was any advice that you can give to the rookie, the new person that's starting, or the older guy, or the person that's just coasting, that feel like they need something to do better, or they feel like they aren't progressing, or people aren't giving them a chance, what would you tell them?
I would say just take a chance on yourself. Really sit down, reevaluate what you're doing. Be like, why am I like, if you're coasting, why am I slacking? What's the really break down? What's the reason? Be like, do I need to get back in the gym? Do I need to find just something to motivate me to, why do I still love this? For the rookie and the persons that are just starting, I would say, give everything you got. And I mean that to a certain extent, obviously, because, there's real life and then there's this. But if you're in this, give it literally everything you have.
I agree. That's good, man. Like, oh man, especially with the coasting one, I wasn't ready for you to answer it the way you did.
Yeah, because
Sometimes,
it's been like I've had that, especially like when I was back in high school where I played like football or basketball, and it's like you'll sometimes you like on those like those towards the end of the season where you're just like, okay, but it's like, okay, let's say we did really good throughout the season. We're already in the playoffs. Like, okay, but yeah, we still got more games yet. You gotta find things to be like, okay, hey, you still gotta lock in, or oh, we're about to go to this booking. All right, hey, and sometimes you don't feel like getting up to go, but it's like, hey, why do I love this? Why am I doing this? You gotta keep finding your why and then keep pushing.
yeah, it's definitely great advice because sometimes we feel that way with certain things. Not even just wrestling, but just in life. Sometimes you do have to take yourself out of the equation to see what you did wrong. And I had to learn that last year with certain situations. Like I felt like I was doing everything right. And then one of my friends, when I talked to him about something, he was like, sometimes you do have to take yourself out of the equation. What can you do to make this situation better? Sometimes you do have to reflect on yourself. Sometimes it's not people or the circumstances. It's you. It's the person. What
Mm-hmm.
can you do? As far as booking, are you making yourself available, letting people know, hey, I'm available for bookings? Are you consistent? Are you asking people? Are you showing up to shows? Are you showing people your progress? What are you doing? You cannot just sit there and just be like, nobody's booking me. If no one knows you're available to be booked, you're not going to get booked unless somebody knows you personally. What are you
Right.
doing
Yeah.
different? you know
Yeah, it's one of those. Yeah, like if you've been in it for so long, it's good sometimes on like weeks that you're not booked. Take yourself out of the equation. Be on the outside looking in. Like, okay, what can I do better? And like, always just constantly think about what you're doing, even if it's not like the first thing in the front of your mind. Like, just put it on the back burner and come back to it later. I've done that numerous times, especially with overthinking my character and my work in the ring. Like it's like, oh, this match really didn't go well. Like, what can I do to be better? If you just take yourself out of the equation, rethink it, watch film. I'm a huge advocate of watching film,
Yes.
whether if it's your own or other people's or just trying to come up with ideas. Watch film, watch how people do certain things. Why does it look so great when they do it, and when you do it it might not be as good? Just finding certain ways to always break down and be extremely detailed in everything that you possibly can do with this business.
Yeah, I do that a lot, especially when it's something either I feel like I should do better. I rewind it over and over. Oh man, you should have did this. You should have did that. Or looking at other matches, like other people's matches. I watch a lot of matches, and then I'll be like, man, that was nice. How did they do this? How did they come through psychology? Like psychology is so special to me. So those are things that you do have to reflect, and I do think that you did great, and I do love your response to that question.
Thank you.
Um, Before you go, I did want to show like a few pictures of like some of just a few things like what we went through outside of like the graphic.
Oh, I
Uh,
haven't even seen this. Okay. Oh my gosh. See,
yeah,
even just
like
looking back at these brings back so many memories.
yeah. So it's like to me, um, what we have done has been very great, and in professional wrestling as a whole. And I'm not saying it because it's just we're part of it. I just think that what we did, I think we gave it all, and I felt that we always tried to one up each match. And these were just from like two matches that we had, and like I said, the first one is also like available, so it's just like I think even like Nathan and Smash knew that like the matches that we were going to do, it were going to be great. And it was just like we would have to challenge ourselves each time to try to, what are we going to do different?
Oh yeah.
What are we going to do different? What we don't want to do is we don't want to have the same match three times, let alone twice. You know, so just steal shots, and then like even when you won our last bout, you know, and even seeing like the guys in the back, like looking at it and watching you,
Mm-hmm.
become the champ. You know, these are guys that's been in the business for a long time. And,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
guys. What is that? Pornstash, T-Dub, that Ragnar and Arsenal back there.
yeah, I think so. Yeah. So
Yeah.
to me, I actually love this picture for sure because it just shows that like you belong here, and you know you should keep up the great work. Like I said, from the pictures that I've shown earlier, from like being a champion again, and you know being in a group with a lot of solid guys, and then even saying that like you are most improved. You know, you've won awards and now that's wrestling as well for your character and things like that. So I personally want to say that I'm truly proud of you and who you are becoming because you care so much about this business. You care so much about your character. You're just not somebody that wears a mask. You've given the mask, or the mask itself has its own personality that you incorporate into Jayden Mercer. Not a lot of people can do that so quick. Like you said, it took you said 10 months? About 10 months?
10 months to concept that story. And
Yes,
then
10 months.
it's been from when I started back in April 2021 till present day to really concept it and really show it.
Yeah. So sometimes it takes people 10 years. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
it takes
like
people
it's
a long time.
yeah, and like especially I'll say this as long as it's for at least for now that's wrestling. It's like it's almost to the point where it's like okay, I was able to tell the story with you and what that story was. What's next? What can we do different this time? And obviously that's why I'm on my little break is what can we do next? How can we tell another story? And that I was like, well, there's a couple different things. What if we told a backstory? What if we tell a story prior to? Because I'm a big advocate and I take a lot of inspiration from different things. So like the movie Split, that's an inspiration I've had with the character. Obviously in wrestling, like Undertaker, Bray Wyatt, Malachi Black, just a bunch of those kind of characters. Certain bands that I like, Hollywood Undead, Mushroom Head, Orbit Culture, all of these different things that I've incorporated into what I do. So I'm like, what can we do different? And I'm like, well, the other day I went back and I watched Star Wars, and obviously they started at episode 4. I'm like, that's an interesting concept. What if the Spectre started at episode 4? What about episode 1? What about, episode 7? So there's a lot of different things that I'm like, how can we make this better?
But you see, that's what I like. It's like just to try to take something that you see and incorporate it into how this could work for you and to make it into a cohesive unit. That's what character development is all about. Like I had this gear that I currently wear as Classic Alpha. I had the gold stuff. The idea was not to like be a superhero, if anything. It was supposed to be more of a warrior thing, if it makes sense, like a warrior thing.
Okay,
because the inspiration came from I don't know if you're fans of Digimon, but
okay, I've seen it a time or two.
Is it War Greymon, I believe? And he sort of had like a sash or something like that, and it's like a little like flaps, like the flaps that I wear on my singlet. That was the most inspiration I got for the gear. So then when I got the gear and I looked at it, I was like, man, this sort of looks like a superhero thing. Like if I added a cape to it, I would look like a superhero. And then when I bought the cape and added it, I was like, okay, cool. Now this was before I was even Alpha. I just had Classic on the sash.
Okay.
So then I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do with the character? Oh, Classic Alpha. That sounds okay. All right. And then, wear the cape, and then it just took off from there. Because like I said, I was Chris Classic for years, which was a guy that was from the South. And I used to wear fake gold grill with chains and everything because I'm from the South, you know that. And then it went to like a collegiate guy with the singlet, with the Letterman jacket, it went somewhere. You know what I'm saying? But then where I'm at is Alpha. I don't feel like I need to change, but I would never say never. So to even hear how you can look at something, because I look at a lot of stuff too, and I'll be like, man, this would be dope if I can incorporate this somehow. But with that, and I'm sure you got to be careful with that because you don't want to make it seem like you're ripping something off. Exactly. You get what I'm saying?
Yep.
So,
Yeah, it's one of those where it's like you got to be very obviously it's great to take inspiration from things, but it's like you don't want to be carbon copies of things. So it's like, okay, yeah, I like what this person did or what's going on over here, but now how can we tweak it a little bit to make it your own? And
yeah,
so, you know, there's been a lot of different things, at least as far as my character and how I've done that. And so it's one of those things you gotta be a little careful with, but at the same time, if you do it right, who knows what can happen. And I'm always a big advocate of, you know, I don't really care at the end of the day how far I make it in this business. Obviously, everybody wants to make it to the, you know, the big leagues.
yeah,
But
yeah,
you know, sometimes you also got to be realistic. So I'm like, at the end of the day, when it comes to wrestling, all I care about is the work I produce in the ring and then being able to live and die with my creative ideas and my art. That's
yeah.
always been a very important thing to me. And it's one of those, that's why I'm so careful with the character I've created, where it's like, you know, this is like my baby. I want to, you know, keep it as close to me as possible. And I don't want things getting tweaked, or if they do get tweaked, how can we, you know, still make it, you know, be your own?
Yeah, you're very, and I want to say that you are very artistic when it comes to those kind of things. Because, like I said, the character that you have, you literally make it your own, and you make it relatable to who you are, to make people even want to pay attention to it. Like I said, even when you're not at the shows, people are wearing your merchandise and things like that, and that's a big thing because sometimes people wear for support, but now it's just like, hey, either I hope to see this person, or I'm just supporting this person, you know. So that's always a great thing. Clint also says, "Love Mushroom Head."
Yep. Yeah, it's been a while since I've recently listened to this, but I even just coming up with characters like as far as concepting like how the mask looked and that design, like it was a lot of looking back at like the original Hollywood Undead and how they transformed their stuff. Slipknot was another one I looked at. Like it's
Yeah.
and then even just being a fan of like, you know, like Star Wars and you know certain movies that have these certain masks and things that you see online, you're just like, I like how they did this. How can I make it my own?
Yeah. So that's good. All right. Well, I do want to say first and foremost, thank you for your time. Uh, I truly think that this definitely needed to happen between us. I did want to know more about the character that I didn't already know. I also wanted to pick your brain about like certain things you don't like, what you can leave behind, and character development. Because to me, especially on this channel, I preach a lot about character development. Who are you? Why are you? I know it doesn't make sense, but
Mhm.
why are you? Why are you here? What makes you different? Well, why do you want to wrestle? What makes you stick out? And I think that you cover all that with the Spectre, with Jayden Mercer. I think you could. I think you cover all of it. And even if people don't know off of the first sighting of you and wrestling and performing, they're going to want to follow you because they want to know what is it. You can't teach that. You can't train it. You can tell people, you can preach it, but that's something that fans and viewers do on their own. You
Mhm.
know, a lot of people try to make people like them. It's one of the hardest things to do sometimes.
It really is, yeah.
Yeah, and for you to be on the side on a balance, because you can't even say evil character, good and evil. You know what I'm saying?
That and like that, oh my gosh, that especially in wrestling where everything is very black and white, you're either good or
Yes,
you're evil. I'm like,
yes,
one of the hardest things, but I always love to challenge myself. What is the hardest things is to be like, okay, obviously it's easy to be one side or the other. What if you can be the balance? What if you can be gray in the world of black and white? How would that possibly look? So that's always been something that I've personally prided myself on, but at the same time, you know, in this wrestling world where it's, you know, you're either good or you're evil, it doesn't necessarily always have to be that way. You know, that's where the angel and the devil on the shoulders kicks in. So it's
yeah,
like, okay, do I use the darkness for good? Because, you know, that's also a very real thing where, you know, these dark things have happened, but now I can use it for good. But then also you can go down the rabbit hole of darkness and use it for evil. So that was another interesting concept and conversations that I've had with people where really developing the Spectre character. It's like, it's not just an evil guy with a mask. It's, what does the mask do? Is it the reason that it leans one way or the other? And so that was another huge thing.
Yeah. And like I said, man, so many people are behind you and support what you do as a professional wrestler. And like I said, and I've said it before, protect your character, which you've done great. But like, just keep up the great work, man, because like I said, if you and everybody else in ACW are an inclination on what the future is going to look like, it's in good hands. It's truly in good hands because you guys develop a character. You guys try to stick out. You guys try not to be like everyone else. So like I said, keep up the great work. DJ Doe says this was a good interview, and it was. And like I said, I appreciate you, sir, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Once again, guys, this is the Spectre Jayden Mercer. You can follow his link tree, which I'll have below.
Yeah,
Mercer.
Yep, all my links are there: Facebook, Twitter, or X, whatever it's called nowadays, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. It's so Pro Wrestling Tees. Everything's in there. So go click that, check that out if you're interested in more. Alpha, thank you so much for having me. It's been a blast.
No problem. This is the site. So he has a lot of things that you can get his merch. You can contact him. You can follow him. You can subscribe. Check it out, man. This is the future. Well, this is the now of professional wrestling. This is what we're looking at now. So, no pressure when I say it, but
right. I mean, I was gonna say you're putting a lot of pressure on me, but
I mean, it's the truth. And like I said, a lot of us, and I'm trying to leave, but I can't. I gotta keep saying stuff. A lot of people, we're quick to get on the negatives of things that we do not like in professional wrestling. And sometimes we harp on it so bad that we cover the positive stuff. And I think that we don't give a lot of the positive things enough light to say, hey, it's not going down the toilet all the way. Like, you do have people that have a standard that they're going by. And like I said, you do a great job with that. So I'm going to always say that because you do that. That's you. So I do appreciate your time. Thank you, everybody who has watched. If you're going to watch this later because we're about to be off, thank you for taking the time. Like I said, the Spectre, Jayden Mercer. Once again, man, I thank you for what you continue to do for professional wrestling. Thank you for the great matches that we've had, the stories that we've had, and everything like that. Thank you for being a phenomenal wrestler. So,
thank you very much.
No problem. All right, guys, we are out of here. This is Chris Classic. Let's take it home.